Hey, welcome to Digital Dental Marketing Made Easy. Today is a bit different. I'm going over 4 common mistakes, but I'm actually being interviewed by Alyssa, who is the founder of the Dental Marketing Podcast. It's an amazing podcast. I would really recommend that you listen to it if you are a dentist who wants to grow your practice. Let's get started.
All right, welcome to Dental Marketing Secrets. And today I have Natalia Porras from NP Marketing on the show, and she is going to share the 4 most common mistakes that dental practices make in their marketing. So I'm super excited to have you here, Natalia.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Of course. So before we start, why don't you start by just giving us a little bit of background about who you are and what you do?
So I'm the founder of NP Marketing, which is a dental marketing agency that is based out of Montreal in Canada. And we've been working since 2005. So it's 15, So it's been 5 years now that we've been handling all sorts of clients in the dental industry.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And so you've seen people make all kinds of mistakes, right? I've seen it too, of course.
Right. So yes, I've had the pleasure of talking to many different dentists who would approach us either for consulting or to get a website started or social media, and a lot of mistakes that have appeared as we have those conversations with dentists.
Yes. So what are those mistakes?
Okay, so let's start with number 1, which I think is the most common one, which is dentists tend to jump into tactics before having any sort of plan for marketing. And I'm going to be emphasizing a lot social media marketing. So just sort of like, okay, I want to get started. I just want to do this. And so they jump right into, say, opening up a Twitter account or whatever kind of social media account without really thinking before, having any kind of planning of what they want to do. And some of the things that I would always recommend is, okay, hold on and take a second here and think about what you want to do. Who is your ideal patient? Have you thought about where they hang online? Have you thought about your own USP, so unique selling proposition, to know so that you could align your messaging on social media with your USP, for example. Think about any kind of content pillars that you want to make sure that you're consistently talking about on social media. So all of these things need to be thought out properly before just jumping right straight into tactics. So that's the most common mistake I would say I've seen. Mm-hmm. As well as one little thing, which I like to call having a social media policy, which sounds a bit more strict than it really is, but it's all about identifying who is responsible for social media within your practice, and identifying as well how this person, for example, is going to be responding to both online positive and negative reviews, because let's face it, negative reviews do occur. Mm-hmm. And it's better for you to have some sort of a sample, let's say, answer to that, as well as how much time is that person going to be taking, for example, to just respond back to any kind of queries or questions or comments online. So that's having also social media policy. That's all within a plan.
I love that. I think it's so important to make sure somebody is actually designated to handle that task, because so many times I see either the dentist trying to do it all when they're so busy, and that's not the best plan of action, although they should definitely participate.
Correct.
Or nobody at all is doing it, and that just doesn't get done.
Exactly. So what we've seen as well is, dentists have to identify as well or decide whether they want to do it internally or they want to outsource it to, say, a dental consulting firm or a consultant or a marketing agency, or do a hybrid of both. Mm-hmm. So have someone responsible inside that is liaising with the agency or with the consultant, but there has to be a decision made as to who's responsible as well.
And it's so important today. We cannot skip out on having a presence on social media.
Absolutely.
Everybody, if they find you, say they find you through Google, say you're on Google My Business, you're on there, they're going to check your social media profiles. Instagram is becoming the new Google, where people, I'm going to search them on Instagram,
Exactly. And you get to see so many more things on social media than you would on a website, which brings me to my second mistake that I've seen a lot, which is not having an up-to-date website. So many times a dentist will have an amazing social media presence because they've invested the money there, and they just forget to update their website, or they just don't have the budget enough to have an up-to-date website that aligns with what is being put out there on social media.
Right.
That's something, because of course, the main objective of doing any kind of social media marketing is to drive traffic back to the website to ultimately convert patients or convert followers into patients, right? So to have them book an appointment. So that's something else that I see quite a bit, just having a website that is completely different to what's happening online on social media, or having a website that you can't even book an appointment online. So all those efforts that you're doing on social media to drive traffic, they're just going down the drain.
Absolutely. And I think it's a lot for some people. There's so many things, it becomes overwhelming. So can you speak to that at all? Like maybe they should take things one thing at a time, or?
Yeah, well, I think that the most basic thing that a dentist should have, or a dental clinic, is a website, to be very honest. Even if it's not something super fancy, but it has to have some must-haves on there, like a book an appointment request button, for example, contact information, your treatments. And what I always recommend is having your own photos instead of stock photography. Mm-hmm. So some of those basics, and again, websites don't have to be super expensive either. It's just about having a decent website that is mobile friendly, that has those requirements, and that's it. That's where I would start. And then I would go into, step number 2, which for me would be social media, Facebook ads, SEO, Google ads, etc.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, good. So that sort of brings me to the third mistake. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's all about budget. So it's just not allocating sufficient budget from billings into just general marketing, and like really focused on social media and digital marketing in general. So what I find is that dentists don't have, let's say, a benchmark of what that percentage should be. And sometimes it's just very low. It's a very low budget, which then what occurs, or what I've seen a lot, is that it hinders on, for example, a dentist being able to use Facebook ads properly, because there's just not sufficient budget being put into Facebook ads, or a whole system like what you guys have. Mm-hmm. Or, for example, I also see poor quality content being put out on social media. So graphic design that's not great, or photography that's not amazing, because again, there's this lack of comprehension of how much budget should be allocated to marketing. And what I see occurring is that DSOs are coming in and they have higher budgets for marketing. So they're outspending independent dental clinics in terms of their marketing budget. So I think that's a common mistake, is, again, to not know how much percentage from your billings you should be allocating to your marketing.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you have any experience in that you maybe want to share in terms of what your experience has been.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I always say, and I think this is another common mistake, is that you don't have to always be getting like a 5-to-1 ROI on your marketing efforts. If you're getting 1-to-1 ROI on your marketing efforts, you get to do marketing for free. That's awesome. But people don't see it like that. They say, oh, I'm running Facebook ads, I'm running Google ads, I'm only getting a 2-to-1 ROI. This isn't worth it. I'm like, are you crazy? That's like you're winning the lottery. Every time you put in $1, you're getting $2 out. Why would you stop that,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, but that also brings me to the fourth mistake, which is dentists not knowing how to measure ROI on social media efforts properly. And I think that actually that's one of the biggest questions I get as well. So it's a mistake, but it's also a question as to how do I measure ROI on social media? And I think that's one of the most important things that anyone has to do. And that's when the debate comes in as to, are you going to be doing social media internally, or are you going to be outsourcing to someone who maybe knows a bit better on how to track ROI, how to track your metrics, how to set some objectives. And I think it's okay to do social media internally as long as that person is well trained. And so many times I've also heard this where a dentist would come up with, okay, well, I'm going to make the youngest person on staff, the millennial, is the one who's going to be responsible for social media because, hey, they know it all, you know? They're the ones who are on social media. And that's a common misconception. You know, age has nothing to do with it. Yes, maybe there are more on Instagram, but whoever is doing social media for a dental clinic needs to be trained. They need to have a plan. They need to know what your brand stands for. And if they're going to start doing any kind of Facebook ads, well, they really need to understand how to. Otherwise, you're going to be spending a lot of money and not really reaching the right target audience, right?
Oh, yeah.
So just that, going back to that fourth sort of common mistake, not knowing how to measure ROI. And I think it all starts with knowing what your objectives and goals are of being on social media as a dental clinic, you know, and really like identifying them and listing them out and knowing, okay, what metrics am I going to be using?
Right.
Are we going to be reporting every, say, quarter? Like nothing super complicated, but you do have to have a system in place to be able to know what's working and what's not working.
And I think it also really depends, like you said, on their goals, you know, like, is your goal to just create more brand awareness? Then that's a little bit harder to measure than if your goal is to get a certain number of new patients every week. So it definitely depends on that as well.
I agree. And I think a lot of dentists say, well, my only goal is to acquire new patients. And I also think that's something, a bit of a misconception. Yes, you want to get new patients, but you also want to retain your current patients. So you want to build that loyalty, and you also want to build brand awareness. So, you know, there's always different sort of goals that you have to have in mind. It's not just acquiring new patients. You know, retaining your current patients is actually less expensive than acquiring new ones. And social media is really good for that. You know, to keep top of mind with your current patients and make sure that they're booking their 6-month appointment before you're even calling them. Or something that we've seen that's amazing is that, of course, on Facebook, you could recommend dental clinics, right? So your current patients can, if they're within like a mommy group, that I see a lot. A new person in town will say, I'm looking for a dental clinic. Can someone recommend a dental clinic? And that patient of yours, if you have a Facebook page, that patient who's happy is going to most probably recommend you on Facebook. So there you go. You're retaining, you're acquiring, you're getting word of mouth through that current patient. So there's a couple of different goals, and you need to know the metrics behind them.
Yeah, you know, I think a couple years ago, running Facebook ads would result in like you getting new patients. That was the whole point, and you kind of being ahead of the curve. Today, it's become dentistry. It's such a cutthroat field, and there's dental offices on every corner that if you're not doing that, you're falling behind.
Yes.
So it's almost like you have to keep up with your competition. We have to keep up with today's day and age and where people are at.
Exactly. It's all about also keeping up with your competition. And I also get the sense that younger dentists are a bit more aware. They're a bit more digitally savvy. And so they're investing a bit more in terms of digital marketing. And so the ones that are sort of have been there for a while, more mature practices, might not think about this as a priority just yet. And I think they should at least be going towards that, towards making digital marketing a priority for any kind of marketing for a dental practice. And I just want to go back to also that fourth mistake, which is not knowing how to measure ROI. There's a couple of techie things that I think people, you know, they just either don't use them because they feel like it's too difficult or too techie, as I say. And that's really making use of Google Analytics and just placing some, again, I go back to saying metrics, but it's more about tracking mechanisms, you know.
Right.
And there's different ways to do that, like just having a Google URL builder put in place so that you know where your clicks are coming from if you're running a campaign or if you have sort of various touch points for your prospective patients. I think it's really important to know that.
Sometimes it gets a little bit tricky with that stuff.
It does, yeah.
I tell all my clients, every time you guys answer the phone and you have a new patient, how did you hear about us? You got to ask that. But sometimes people don't remember because we're everywhere. Like we'll have people say, oh, I saw you on TV, and the office is like, we're not even running an ad on TV.
Right.
And you never know. They might first see you in a magazine, and then they see your Facebook ad, and then they just stumble upon your Instagram, and then they Google you, and then they call and they say, I found you on Google. But in reality, it was the magazine first. You don't know.
There's always a percentage, of course, of people that are going to come in, and you're not going to be able to say, track it back to click magazine this day, right? You're not going to know the path. You always have to have that in mind. I think that's actually also a difficult conversation to have with clients when you're trying to explain.
You never know.
We could track this much, but a whole bunch is people going down the funnel, coming back, going back, and then finally booking an appointment. So
and that also gets in, if you have clients that are running Google and Facebook ads, it also gets into that whole attribution war where Google's saying, no, that was our lead, and Facebook is saying, no, that was our lead.
Exactly.
But in reality, maybe first they saw a Facebook ad, and then they Googled you, and then they saw your Google ad, and then they clicked there. And so it's about being everywhere. And it's about, again, keeping up with the competition and making sure that you're doing what we need to do these days to stand out.
Exactly. So those were my 4 most common mistakes. There's many more that I've seen, but I think those are the ones that come up the most recurrently, at least.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any of your own that maybe you wanted to add to this list.
I thought that what you said was fabulous. Those were great. Another one that I kind of want to add in, which it might contradict a little bit with your first one of not having a plan, but I'm just a huge proponent of just putting yourself out there, because I know it's really uncomfortable, especially with Instagram, like putting stories up there. And now we've got dentists dancing on TikTok. It's uncomfortable, but you don't have to be perfect if you're ready to give it a go. Just kind of try it out, see how it goes, and then you evolve. Like your first one's not going to be perfect.
Right. No. Your first try is not going to be perfect.
No, but eventually you will get better at it. And if you never did the first try, you would never have your 50th, which is fantastic, right?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to add?
I think that's it. Those are the most common ones that I've seen, at least so far. I'm sure we're going to get some more added to this list eventually, but that's it from my end.
Awesome. And if people want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
They could go to our website at npdigitalmarketing.com.
Awesome. And you just got that redone, didn't you?
Yes, we just launched it a couple of
beautiful
weeks ago. Yeah, thank you so much.
Nice.
They could find out a bit more about us on there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.